Okay guys, we're back out here again. You can see I've made a little bit of progress, slowly starting to take the car apart. More importantly, I have the list started, so we've got quite a bit of stuff to do. A few things to buy, but overall not that bad for a whole off season. I did pop the passenger side fender off just to see what was behind here, kind of what we're working with. It was really hard to visualize what we had to deal with to see if we could get fender exit exhaust out here. I have also cut up an old set of headers to try to build a set for this car. This is the remnants over here. We've got the collectors. I wasn't gonna use these collectors, but you can see actually they might work pretty good on this car for the simple reason that we have such a small gap here. If these were 2x2 collectors, you know, we wouldn't have a whole lot of space, but by doing this, and this edge can go back another inch, it actually has, I think, just enough space, and then they'll exit through the fender and we'll just cut them off roughly flush with the fender. And then the tubes can come in all behind the upper control arm here. On this side especially, you can see we had absolutely no chance of making this work with the inner fenders still in. Like, that's the minimum straight tubing I would want off of a header from like a serviceability standpoint, but also from a performance standpoint. And, you know, it would take a hard 90 and still, I don't think you could fit 4 3/4 inch tubes down here. And the other side, it's not quite as bad on this side, but you can see it would still be really tight to try to fit 4 3/4 inch tubes down there. Just really not worth the effort. This one, I am gonna have to cut this bend right off and weld a whole new straight piece on. That's the only one that I couldn't keep out of all of these. The rest of them I'll be able to make work. This one, it's kind of nice that it kicks 90 degrees and down a little bit because it'll go under this tube. And again, we're gonna relocate all of this brake stuff so it's not gonna be in the way. I've also come up with a bit of a game plan as far as how we're gonna put the 12 point in, like the extra 2 bars that come from the cage down to the frame rail. I think we're actually going to do that before we cut the inner fenders out. I'll just make a little hole here and enough to weld my reinforcement plate and a hole in the firewall and have the new tube in before I ever cut these out. I think there's just too much chance for this to flex, and I don't want to get into doing a million measurements and then trying to, you know, shim everything and make it all perfect that way. I know the car handles good the way it's sitting, so if I weld the supports in before I cut all of this stuff out, we should be fine. On that note, if you haven't seen my TikToks, we're basically gonna make a cut here and then straight back. It'll come right off at the firewall, and everything, you can see how it kind of looks like it's got a frame rail along here. Everything above that is going. The core support, like the radiator, all that stuff is gonna go, and we'll build our own setup here that should weigh a little bit less, but is also gonna look a lot nicer and be a lot more easy to work around. The other nice thing about doing stuff that way is we don't have to pull the motor. I can build the headers before I pull the motor out, so they'll be done. Partially just because I kind of want to do them first, but also then I'm not pulling the motor out, tearing everything down, and then I can't build the headers until the very end when everything's going back together, which usually is going to be pretty close to the beginning of next season. And I'd really like to be able to take my time building the headers because, you know, I want them to look nice and work well. So next steps will be I've got to get some 1 5/8 tubing to build the 12 point out and get that bent up. I've got a buddy with a tubing bender, so we'll get that all bent up. And then I've got to build I'm gonna do like 6x6 plates and bend them around the stock frame rail per se, if you want, I guess we'll call it that. Then we can kind of figure out how long the tubing needs to be, roughly where the bend needs to be, what kind of angle we want that to be on. We'll get that in there, and then we can cut the inner fender out. I'm really excited to cut all of this stuff out because race car. So like and subscribe for more, guys. I'm gonna try to post every week still. Probably won't be Mondays though. I've been doing some reading and apparently that's the absolute worst possible day you could post stuff on YouTube and social media. So it might be, we'll try Tuesdays for now, see how that pans out and go from there.